What business does the collection team foreman have with me? What are you talking about? Why am I here? I'm here, 'cause there's something I need to handle. Wei Yun-suk looked at Cahoon. Confused. Cahoon glanced around at the excavation team members. Our luggage carrier isn't here, so I'll need to borrow someone from your team to help us out. What? The foreman stared, stunned. Who needs someone strong to carry stuff? That's what the collection team is for, right? One worker asked. The foreman from the collection team overheard this and burst into anger. My guys worked 3 hours overtime without dinner yesterday. Now you think one of them should carry your luggage. The real reason the collection team had to work so hard was because the excavation team finished way earlier than expected. Thanks to Jin-Woo's help, Yoon-suk tried to explain. We were supposed to work until 7 last night, but we finished by 5 because of Jin-Woo. Seeing the foreman's red face and clear frustration, Yoon-suk trailed off unsure of what else to say. Ki-hoon then turned to the excavation team, ready to move forward. Is there anyone ready to join the strike squad? You'll get extra pay once the mission is done. Ki-hoon asked hopefully, but no one jumped at the chance. He looked around, his eyes pleading for anyone to step forward. But every gaze dodged his, either staring at the ground or up at the clouds. It was clear why. Why risk your life for a little cash? Even if you were in a tight spot, it wasn't worth it. The best hunters around were only C rank, and no one wanted to take that kind of chance. Most of them were lower-tier adventurers ranked D or even E. But Ki-hoon had this crazy idea. He wanted to take one of them into an A-rank dungeon. That's like jumping straight from a training montage to fighting a boss in a video game. These guys would struggle to survive a B-rank dungeon. And now he was aiming for something way beyond that. A-rank dungeons are no joke. The monsters there are so strong that even a scratch could mean instant death. It's like throwing a rookie into a horror movie. Sure, it might be exciting, but one wrong move, and it's game over. This place was super dangerous, like, one wrong step could mean instant death. It wasn't the kind of creepy lair that a low-ranking hunter like Ki-hoon could handle. Sure, his job as a luggage carrier was just to carry gear for the team, but compared to digging up stuff from less risky areas, this seemed way too dangerous. Ki-hoon's face twisted in shock. No, he muttered, his voice barely coming out. Ki-hoon had no idea how long it would take to find a new luggage carrier. He could lose half a day or even the whole day if things went south. This isn't good. Ki-hoon, he thought. Then his eyes locked with one of the hunters. Oh, wait a minute. This guy was staring right back at him. His name was Jin-Woo. Ki-hoon studied Jin-Woo, and Jin-Woo seemed to be sizing him up just as carefully. He seems sharper than your average tank. Ki-hoon thought. Usually tanks were the ones in charge of the team. Ki-hoon wasn't your average tank. He had a lean frame compared to others in his role, and he stood tall so much so that he looked more like a basketball player than a hunter at first glance. Jin-Woo finally turned his attention away from Ki-hoon. Woo! Ki-hoon sighed, letting out a breath he'd been holding. What just happened? He had been so tense that he'd completely forgotten to breathe. He wasn't sure why he felt so anxious. Maybe it's just nerves from being the raid leader for the first time. Usually he went on raids as a backup tank. But today was different, really wanted to get this right. Ki-hoon hunched over, took a few deep breaths, then stood back up. There was a bit of excitement among his teammates as they prepared for the big moment. Ki-hoon thought everyone was just fussing over him, but then he realized it wasn't about him at all. He looked up and his eyes landed on something sticking up toward the sky. It was the volunteer luggage carrier he'd been waiting for. His face lit up with relief. Then Jin-Woo stepped forward, and everyone's eyes snapped to him. I'll do it. Jin-Woo said simply. The group went wild, an E-rank hunter volunteering to go into an A-rank dungeon. Are you serious? Someone shouted. Do you know how dangerous that is? There are high-level beasts swarming in there. Are you crazy, Sung? Why would you risk your life for a little extra money? Another voice added. The team surrounded Jin-Woo, trying to talk him out of it. Meanwhile, Yoon-suk tried to calm Ki-hoon down, hoping to avoid more drama. My goodness, one of them said. That guy just started yesterday. He doesn't know any better. What's his rank? Another asked. Yoon-suk glanced at Jin-Woo quickly, then lowered his voice. He's only an E rank. That's way too low for something like this. Why don't you pick someone else? It's way too dangerous for him. Yoon-suk thought hard about it. That guy is an E rank. He had made eye contact with Jin-Woo earlier, but now he was second-guessing his choice. He definitely didn't feel any kind of super strong magic or anything from Jin-Woo, but there was something sharp and focused about him that caught Ki-hoon's attention. He couldn't quite explain it, but he could tell Jin-Woo wasn't your average E-rank hunter for sure. Yoon-suk had no reason to lie, but Ki-hoon just didn't buy it. Plus, who even cares about ranks when you're just carrying luggage? That job's all about hauling gear, not much else. If the person carrying the bags at the back of the group was in serious trouble, then things were already going south. If even the strongest hunter couldn't make it out alive, what difference did it make if the bag carrier was super strong or just a regular person? Either way, they'd be in big trouble. When Karyeon got to this point in his thinking, he decided not to waste any more time debating. The situation already seemed like a lost cause, so why bother waiting around? They'd already had so many delays, and the raid hadn't even started yet. Kahan glanced over at Jin-Woo. "No, I'll take him," Kahan said firmly. "Is that too heavy for you?" Kahan asked, eyeing the massive backpack strapped to Jin-Woo's shoulders. Jin-Woo shook his head and gripped the hilt of his sword. "I'm good," he replied, his voice steady. The pack was stuffed with extra clothes, weapons, protective gear, and everything else the strike squad might need. It looked huge, but thanks to Jin-Woo's superhuman strength, it didn't seem to weigh him down at all. Kahan studied Jin-Woo for a moment, then nodded in satisfaction. "All right," he said, turning toward the gate. Jin-Woo spun his head around in surprise. Right before him floated another huge gate, even bigger than yesterday's. But wait, this one felt different. The magic coming off today's gate wasn't as strong as yesterday's. Even though it looked a bit larger, that's why the second unit hunters were handling this raid, because the challenge depends on the magic level, not just the size of the gate. Jin-Woo stood there for a moment, taking it all in. Yeah, he could definitely tell the magic here was much weaker than what they'd faced yesterday. Everything seemed okay. But then why did he feel so uneasy? A strange uneasy feeling swept over him, like the one he'd felt before stepping through the red gate. "I'm sure it's nothing." Aidhom gave the order. "Let's gear up and go." The strike squad, who had been waiting by the entrance, started heading in one after another. The hunters filed into the dungeon. Jin-Woo, who'd been keeping a close eye on the gate, followed them last. "You have entered the dungeon." Inside the dungeon, everything looked normal. Jin-Woo had been feeling uneasy because of a weird feeling he'd had earlier, but when he saw that the passageways were way smaller than the dungeon from yesterday, he let out a sigh of relief. Whoa, they also got lucky this time. They hadn't been zapped into another dimension or anything. Not that it mattered much, since this team could totally handle a red gate if they had to. With 11 A-rank players and 6 B-rank ones, they were definitely ready for whatever came next. In a different group, these squad members probably wouldn't have been stuck in the second unit. Jin-Woo let out a quiet laugh. "I'm not even on the main team," he said with a shrug, "so let's not get too worked up about it." For Jin-Woo, today and yesterday were supposed to be days off. He was just here to hang out, and maybe watch what happened. Joining a so-called second-tier group wasn't anything to stress about. Jin-Woo took a deep breath and reminded himself to relax. No need to be too nervous, he told himself. A woman with a warm smile, who looked like she was in her late 20s, walked beside him. She seemed to notice his tense expression, and decided to strike up a conversation to help him ease up. "Our leader Ki-hoon, and every other hunter here, are really good at what they do," she said reassuringly. "No worries," the healer said with a warm smile. Jin-Woo hadn't been scared or anything, but whatever nerves he had melted away like the air escaping a balloon when she smiled so calmly. He held back a laugh and smiled back at her. "Okay," he said simply. The healer seemed happy with how things were going. Meanwhile, the frontliners checked to make sure there were no magic beasts nearby. Once they gave the all clear, they motioned for everyone to move forward. "Let's move," Jin-Woo said as he and the healer followed close behind the strike squad, their eyes scanning the surroundings for any sign of danger. They walked slowly, ready to react at a moment's notice. The healer glanced at Jin-Woo, noticing the weight he was carrying. "If it's too heavy, I could help you," she offered softly. Jin-Woo didn't respond, but handed her the carton of water from his left hand. She took it hesitantly, and as soon as she did, her arms wobbled under the unexpected weight. "Eek," she squealed, struggling to hold on. Jin-Woo quickly reached out and took the carton back, his movement swift and precise. The whole squad stopped in their tracks, eyes wide with shock. staring straight at her. "I'm really sorry," she exclaimed, bowing deeply to the group. From then on, she refused to help Jin-Woo ever again, instead shooting him angry looks whenever he came near. Jin-Woo bit back a grin and kept walking calmly ahead, trying not to burst out laughing. It felt good to finally have something to smile about in such a gloomy place. In places like this, letting your guard down can get you into trouble fast. Jin-Woo had been ending up in some pretty dicey spots lately. Just thinking about how tough those higher floors were made Jin-Woo shiver, even now. But today was different. Then Jin-Woo stopped dead in his tracks. A moment later the others noticed it too. "They're coming." Without waiting for orders, everyone snapped into fight mode. Everything went down in a flash. Jin-Woo was super impressed. That's how top-tier hunters do it. These guys were in a whole other league, compared to the random teams Jin-Woo usually ended up with. Even the healer, who seemed kinda awkward, was all set, her hands glowing with this clear, sparkly light. "Guess I won't be needed here much," Jin-Woo thought, feeling part bummed and part relieved. Just then the magic beast appeared. Were they animals? Maybe dogs? Ki-hoon squinted, narrowing his eyes. Tim 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 Ti, a group of magic creatures that looked like hyenas, came running toward them. Each was about the size of a small car. Ki-hoon blinked, puzzled. Dungeon jackals. He knew for sure as they got closer. These were definitely dungeon jackals. Ki-hoon lowered his shield and relaxed because he didn't need to defend himself against these easy opponents. When one of the jackals leaped for his neck, he knocked it away with his shield. "Tend," someone grunted. "What?" another squad member asked, squinting in confusion. "Dungeon jackals." The others relaxed a bit, looking around with confused expressions. Soon, the air filled with the yips and cries of the whimpering jackals as they met their end. "Tend! Tend! 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 Tend!" Squad moved fast, taking down the creatures one by one. In just moments, more than 10 jackals lay motionless on the ground. The hunters brushed themselves off, looking totally confused. "What just happened?" one of them asked. "It was over before I could even cast a spell," another said, shaking his head. "Why did jackals show up in an A-rank dungeon?" someone else muttered. "Right? This is supposed to be a tough place. Did those idiots at the association mess something up again?" Their voices started to rise, but they quickly remembered themselves. No loud talking in dungeons. Still, it was hard to stay quiet after something so weird happened. Kanhun scratched his head, staring at the jackal corpses. Why would C-rank beasts be here? He wondered out loud. He looked around like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Everyone else looked just as shocked except Jin-Woo. He crouched down, staring at the dead jackals like they were puzzles to solve. These weren't your average monsters, he thought. Something about them didn't add up. Jin-Woo squinted closer. The fur around their necks was all flat, like they'd been tied up somewhere. That could only mean one thing: something in here had been keeping them captive. They must have been intelligent magic beasts, not just mindless creatures. Jin-Woo's mind flashed back to the ice slayers from the Red Gate incident. This felt similar, but even more sinister. It was no secret that smart magic beasts were super tricky to handle, no matter what kind they were. My gut feeling was right. And that wasn't good news. "Whoa. What's got you so focused?" the healer asked, eyeing the jackals suspiciously. Jin-Woo raised a finger to his lips. Chuff, thump, 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 thump. The sound of marching echoed deeper inside. Here comes the real problem. Jin-Woo straightened up, ready for whatever was next. The other hunters quickly realized something was seriously off. "Oh no!" someone exclaimed. Cthulhu managed to shout, "Get ready." Just then, shadowy figures began to emerge from the darkness of the cave. The hunters' eyes widened in shock. "Hi, orcs," one of them whispered. "What are high orcs doing here?" another asked in confusion. A line of tall, muscular high orc warriors stood before them, looking fierce and well-trained. There were 22 of them, plenty to be big trouble. High orcs were already tough foes, but these warriors were way stronger than regular ones. Something's wrong," someone whispered nervously. It was weird. Low-ranking beasts ambushing them right before facing a group of magic beasts. Those magic beasts were super powerful, even among other high-ranking enemies. It just didn't make sense. Shpolf, shpolf. The high orcs jabbed their spears at the hunters. These two groups, hunters and high orcs, were evenly matched. Jin-Woo slipped into a corner, staying out of sight, but ready to act. Jin-Woo watched from the sidelines, waiting for the perfect moment to jump into action. But the healer had other ideas. "Please hide so you don't get hurt," she urged. Her words annoyed Jin-Woo. He took a deep breath to cool down. Ki-hoon, ready to act, taunted the orcs, trying to draw their attention, but they weren't easily provoked. Soon, the beasts and hunters clashed in a chaotic battle. Shouts of gramo filled the air. Weapons sliced through flesh with a sickening splat, while others clanged loudly. Blood sprayed everywhere, as cries of pain echoed around them. Suddenly, mages joined the fight, casting spells that burst like fireworks. Orcs hit by these magical arrows exploded in a shower of light. The ground shook with each boom, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. Ki-hoon roared, charging into the heart of the battle, his fists swinging. Jin-Woo's anger faded as he watched. He realized sometimes stepping back and letting others lead was the best move. The first round of spells worked great against the orcs, but then nothing else happened. The problem was that casting spells took way longer than anyone wanted. The orcs were super strong in close combat, and they started pushing everyone back. "Heal! Heal!" someone shouted. "Hurry!" another voice pleaded. The healers were slammed with work, trying to patch up all the injured fighters. Then, a desperate cry came through. "Heal!" The female healer from earlier was sprinting around the battlefield, doing her best to treat the fallen hunters. "I'm coming. On my way." She rushed over and knelt beside a hunter who was in terrible pain. He had lost an arm in the battle. She quickly started chanting. "Hoo-hum!" A bright light exploded from her hands, and slowly but surely, the missing limb began to grow back. This wasn't just any spell, it was a powerful regeneration magic that only the most skilled healers could do. As she focused on healing him, a dark shadow suddenly loomed over her. She glanced up and gasped. There, holding a big axe, stood an orc she was sure was dead. Her eyes widened in shock. The orc looked really tired, like it had just run a marathon. Her face turned white as a ghost. She scanned around, but she was alone. No one else was around to help her. The orc lifted its axe high in the air. Without hesitation, she stepped in front of her patient, shielding them with her body. "No," she cried out. She held her breath, waiting for the pain to hit. But nothing happened. Everything just stayed silent. Every second felt like an eternity. She glanced up at the orc and couldn't believe her eyes. Og! The orc was floating in midair, shaking violently. How is this even possible? She stared, frozen in shock. Then, without warning, a sickening crunch filled the air. Kerklosh! The orc's head snapped off its body, taking part of its spine with it, as if someone had just yanked it off with brute force. It hit the ground with a thud. Kerkloth! The healer stood there gaping at the orc's lifeless body. Huh? What just happened? The orc's head stayed floating in the air for a moment, like it was defying gravity. Jin-Woo scowled as he realized some blood had splattered onto him. He frowned, then casually tossed the orc's head aside like it was trash. Kerklok! The severed head smacked into another orc, sending it sprawling to the ground. The orc's neck was twisted in a weird way and it looked super unlikely to get back up. That made 2 orcs down so far. Jin-Woo quickly darted off in another direction after turning on stealth mode. Now, neither the high orcs nor the hunters could figure out where he was. Jin-Woo had been waiting for the perfect moment to jump into the fight without being accused of messing with someone else's raid. He moved carefully, not wanting to get blamed for butting in. He suddenly remembered something, his awesome stealth skill. Thanks to that skill, Jin-Woo could move around without anyone noticing him or getting into any trouble. A mischievous grin spread across his face as he thought, "Shall I get started?" Then, that's when he heard a loud shout. Gala totally turned and saw Ki-hoon, the leader of the strike squad, in a tough spot. 3 big ugly high orcs were closing in on him. Without wasting another second, Jin-Woo raced over to help. He was somewhere between near and far from the tank. Then, with a powerful leap, he zoomed through the air and landed right in front of the big orcs. The moment his feet hit the ground, an idea popped into his head. I could take these guys down without any trouble. But that would ruin everything. He was supposed to stay hidden using his stealth skill. Ki-hoon and the others were part of the best group in the Hunters Guild, the top guild in Korea. Except for that goofy healer, The other hunters might quickly figure out that stealth was behind it, if they saw high orcs being torn apart by something they couldn't see. Getting caught wasn't really a problem, but Jin-Woo just didn't want any drama the day before his reevaluation results came out. Jin-Woo had thought about waiting until things went really wrong before stepping in, but then the healer could have been badly hurt. Just look at that female healer, she barely escaped with her life. Jin-Woo's eyes were shining with determination. He wanted to help without anyone noticing him, so that's what he decided to do. His decision happened in a flash. Before he even realized what he was doing, Barca's dagger and Night Killer appeared in his hands. He couldn't stop smiling as he gripped them tightly. His racing heart calmed down, now that the familiar weapons were back. Luckily no one could see his face because of stealth. Jin-Woo knew he had to keep a straight face. No way did he want people to think he was losing it. There he was, watching humans and high orcs clash in this life-or-death battle. And here he was, trying not to laugh like a lunatic. Especially with Ki-hon around. The guy was leading the strike squad, and right now he was fighting for his life against 3 orcs at once. Jin-Woo could tell Ki-hon wouldn't take it well if he caught him grinning like an idiot during all this chaos. Time to focus. Let's take care of these guys first. Jin-Woo muttered under his breath. Then he jumped into action, ready to turn the tide of the battle. Jin-Woo dropped low and struck quickly, slicing through the Achilles tendon of one of the orcs. The high orc warrior bellowed in agony, his roar echoing loud and clear. But Jin-Woo wasn't done yet. With a swift motion, he plunged Barca's dagger into the side of the second orc, and then slashed at the back of the third orc's knee. Jin-Woo, one of them groaned. Another cried out. The rush of battle didn't numb their pain, it only made it sharper. The orcs' muscles locked up as they realized they'd been hit in their weakest spots. Jin-Woo had struck just the right places to take them down fast, and with that, the fight was over. Kahun charged like a freight train, slamming into the orcs with all his might. Shock. Kahun true. Ha-huff. Huff. Ha-huff. Huff. Ha-huff. Ka-huff. Ha-huff. Ha-huff. Kahun lifted his head, his sword still stuck in the orc's chest. Ka-ha. The high orc's lips trembled, its angry eyes rolling back as it collapsed to the ground with a thud. Ka-huff. Kahun pumped his fist in triumph. Jess, I've got this. With renewed confidence, he turned and took down the other 2 orcs closing in on him. Meanwhile Jin-Woo was unstoppable. Grahaf. Kahaf. He darted around the battlefield, moving so fast it felt like the world had slowed down for everyone else. No one noticed him slipping in and out of the chaos, turning the tide of the fight. Shaf. Wherever Jin-Woo passed, orcs crumpled to the ground with fresh wounds, big and small. Grahaf. Gahaf. The high orcs froze in shock as mysterious injuries appeared out of nowhere. And once they hesitated, their fate was sealed. The top-notch hunters jumped at the chance to strike. Wait. This is getting easier, one of them asked, sounding stunned and thrilled at the same time. Are we really taking down all these high orcs without even getting hurt? Did we expect to lose a few warriors, but everyone's fighting way better than anyone imagined? Then, splat. The hunters swung their heavy mace and smashed the head of a high orc into a gory splat. That was when Jin-Woo got some awesome news. You have leveled up. Oh well, all that fighting had really paid off. His level had gone up. It turned out he could still get experience points, even if he didn't strike the final blow or kill the enemies himself. Sure, he only finished off 2 orcs personally, but he'd helped take down 13 of them. It felt pretty cool, knowing his hard work was still rewarded, even when he wasn't the one landing the last hit.